Thank you, Hannah. So we're going to continue with the planning meeting now. We paused the stream just because there were quite a few members of the public leaving and we needed to clear the room a bit. So now we'll carry on with the rest of the meeting. So over to you, Jane, for the next one.
Thank you. So the next item to discuss is number 267 on our agenda, which is 24 The Butts, and it's for a proposed...
We've got two 267s, unfortunately.
Oh, sorry. Yes, so it's number 24 The Butts, just so that everybody is clear on that one. And it's for a proposed single-storey granny annex extension. So you can see here the site location plan and the existing layout of the site. And here it shows the proposed block plan, and you can see that the annex is indicated here. The reason that we have highlighted this one for discussion is, one, it's actually quite a large footprint for an annex, so there was some concern that that could, if it isn't tied by a condition to the main building, that could become a separate residential unit. And then obviously you've got the added parking spaces that would be required. So that was it really. It was just to bring it to your attention and to see whether or not you were happy that we asked for a condition for it to be tied to the main building so that it isn't let or sold separately. And it's number 282 on our agenda, just to clarify.
Thank you, Jane. Any comments from anyone? Any thoughts? I mean, I think the condition is sort of vital, isn't it? So it doesn't get sort of sold off. I think on the design and access or the supporting document, it was for an elderly relative, isn't it? I think the usage initially. Granny.
Can you put the elevations up?
Oh, that's better. Yeah, so sorry, here is the footprint. So you've got the living bedroom, kitchen and bathroom, so it's fully self-contained, and these are the elevations.
Lisa, sorry.
Sorry, Jane, you were talking about the parking. Is there a solution for the parking that they have at the minute?
So what they would it doesn't suggest that there is any additional parking required, because it'd be used in conjunction with the main house. If, however, it was a separate residential unit, it would have to provide at least 2 specific parking spaces for it. So, but because it's an annex, it doesn't necessarily have to provide the same amount of parking spaces as if it were a separate dwelling.
Does that mean that there is a door between the 2 properties?
It's completely separate.
It's in the garden, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why the condition is important, so that effectively it would be the same as if it were attached and there was a door between 2 properties. It's used in conjunction with the main dwelling.
And then the result would be, if they propose later on to sell it as an individual property with a separate address, they would have to reapply.
Exactly, yeah.
That's fine. Yes, happy to go with that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any issue with the actual building. It's a single story. It's not going to overlook anyone. But yeah, I think the condition is important.
Yeah, okay.
So are we happy with that?
Yep.
So subject to condition that it's not to be sold on?
Yeah, so no objection, subject to a condition tying it to the, yeah.
Someone propose that, please. Thank you, Polly.
And that's unanimous, thank you.
Thank you.
So the next application that we're going to discuss, I will just check the number because the number on my screen is different to the
283?
number on the list.
The end one.
The courthouse.
The courthouse, yes.
283.
Yeah. So it's number 283. Thank you. You'll recall that we have seen this application recently, and there are a lot of works proposed essentially so that it becomes the link through to the Saxon Bell development, Iron Gates being the main building in question. One of the issues that we raised last time was next to Iron Gates, if you were looking at it from the front, previously where the pet shop was, there is currently a wall here, quite a high wall, and the proposal was to remove that wall so that it opens up the vista through from King Street around to the sort of rear area of Saxon Vale down to the river and Iceland. I knew that's why you were laughing. And the proposal was to put 2 bollards there. And behind it would be 2 car parking spaces. We were concerned that the view of the cars would actually be worse than the view of the wall that's currently there, the vista, thank you. We did suggest that maybe putting some large planters there and some seating would be better than bollards, because it would at least soften the view of the parked cars there. So the applicant has come back in with that proposal, and you can see just it's an enlarged area there, and then they're proposing this type of planters, and these are just examples of what it could be. Obviously it would be conditioned as to exactly the type that would be used. So that's why they've come back in with this. The Civic Society have commented that hasn't overcome their previous objections, and that actually they would prefer, or basically they're saying that a few planters are no substitute for the wall that at present shields the view of the cars from the heritage asset of Iron Gates. The projection of the cars into the precinct, barely screened by planters, would be horrendous. And it's very sad that FTC don't seem to mind this degradation of the public realm. However, this is what we suggested to the applicant, and that's what they've come back with. So over to you. How do you feel about that?
Sorry, I wasn't here at the planning meeting that discussed it before. So could you just take me back briefly to say what is the point of the removal of the wall?
The point of the removal of the wall, in conjunction with the other works that they're proposing. Now that includes opposite Iron Gates. There's a planter already, and where the steps go down. The intention is to remove that planter and the steps, and to try and level out the area so that there's a better pedestrian access. The thoroughfare from Iron Gates through to the steps at the other end of Marks and Spencer's will become part of the public realm, and there'll be some they're replacing the street lighting, and it will be there will be an area out front of the shops that are already there, which will be retained so that those shops can put out stalls, so that it becomes more of a lively place. The removal of that wall, and also, hang on, let me just move the plan on a bit. There is next to the hairdressers, which I think is called Part 2, there is a very high wall, and it's also proposed that they take down that wall, and it will open up the view all the way around the building. It is actually something that was set out many years ago in a design brief for the area, which incorporated the redevelopment of the Saxon Vale area. basically it's about opening up the views. Now, I appreciate that the view of the back of Iceland is not maybe what everybody wants to see, but I think as a longer term plan for improvements in that area as well, which aren't necessarily included in that. We did meet Anthony Pang, who's the applicant, on site, and he did talk us through it. So that was why we came up with the suggestion of trying to soften it, the view of the cars that would be parked there, with seating and planters rather than bollards.
I would say, having brought up small children in the town, that it was a safety aspect as well, because Iceland has deliveries and that there's all rubbish around there, and I mean it's not a good view. I was just wondering, I'm struggling to see what the benefit is. I know I hear you that it's sort of opening it up to make it a more usable space, but that doesn't seem to align. And that's like two car parking spaces on the other side of that wall anyway.
Three.
But they'll go. No, they'll stay.
No, they'll stay. They'll remain as they are. It's just that you couldn't see them from the front before because the wall is there.
It sort of stops kids, running in that. So there's very little, a very small passageway to get through at the moment. So it's a distraction, isn't it? It's kind of a safety thing, I think, as well as not having to look at the car park. I'm struggling to see the benefit.
I mean, I think part of the other benefit that was described to us was also about the circulation of people in general around the area. But I appreciate, as you say, that there are vehicle movements in the car park and out the back of Iceland. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you necessarily, but I do think it's opening up the area as part of the long-term plan for the area once you've got Saxon Vale in place, and just making it a better flow or different routes for pedestrians, and the other elements of it, certainly I can see the benefits of.
Are there any elements that mean you open that up and then it would be more paved in through that car park? Is there something like that's a walkway, or is it just still going into the car park as it is now?
As it stands at the moment, it will just be going into the car park.
Which is why we wanted the planter, because it was just two bollards.
Forgive me if we already know this, but I feel like we did know what was going to happen to the building behind Iron Gates. Can you just remind me?
Do you mean what's going to happen to the courthouse itself? Yeah, there will be flats.
So it wouldn't be opening it up for circulation around retail space?
Not around the rear, no.
No, it's the front part. So.
Yeah, I knew that. I just wanted to say it.
I think if my memory serves me right, what the applicant was saying was that this was to be viewed in conjunction with the opening up of Saxon Vale. So if you actually look at it just as a car park, then I think Polly's points are valid. But if you look at it in terms of opening up that area, because some of that car park may go actually as car parking, because then depending on access and the river and so on for this side, that will open up. And therefore, what the applicant's trying to do is open up that whole area in front of Marks and Spencer's and the various shops. It could be extension of the independent market. It could have stalls, could run its own markets and so on, and then make it a more pleasant circulation for people, and also then link in with Saxon Vale eventually.
The whole idea was making it a throughfare, wasn't it, between Old Town and New Town, effectively. Any other comments?
No.
No?
And also just to mention, I think
We asked for you.
I raised the point that taking away the planter that's there now on that slope, was there going to be any mitigation of putting some more green in, because otherwise that space is devoid of any green, and the only thing there is the tree near Marks and Spencer's, and that's when the discussion of removing or not having the bollards but replacing it with something green, and then the planters came through in terms of discussion.
So on the basis is what we asked for. I haven't got a problem with it. That's my point. Yeah. So I propose we're okay with it.
And that's unanimous, thank you. The next application, I've highlighted this one because of the Civic Society's comments, is Robbins Court, Robbins Lane. Let me just check what number that is. I think it's 276. I've got the right piece of paper. Yeah. So this is for the relocation of the approved vehicular access to Robbins Court House using the existing access to Robbins Court. I've just put this text here to remind me, really. So the new house and the creation of some flats has had permission quite some time ago, and the application was implemented. So they started work, but it hasn't been finished yet. The proposal at the time, the one that already has permission, had an access going in here into the flats, with a separate access going directly to Robbins Court House. To create that access actually meant the removal of part of the old wall, which is within the conservation area. What they're proposing now is to not open up a second access, so to retain the old wall, and that all vehicles come in the single access here. So that includes for Robbins Court and Robbins Court House. The reason I've put it in is because of the comments from the Civic Society, which somebody's stolen my comments. So, and actually, just before I read you the comments, what I'll do is show you the area. So, for those of you who navigate by the pubs, the Ring of Bells is just here, and Broadway going along there. Robbins Court is in here, and this is the street view. So the access that we're talking about is actually already there, and this would be the part of the old wall that would be removed under the existing permission. So the Civic Society have said this is a dangerous, narrow place to pull in and out of anyway. Concentrating it all in one access would exacerbate the problem, particularly with the awkward manoeuvring proposed. The proposed access to the tandem parking spaces for Robbins Court House, so they're talking about these here, is potentially is awkward and potentially dangerous. It could involve multiple vehicle movements if the car needed to be moved from the inner space. There is an error in the drawings, as both the approved and proposed plans are identical, apart from the label. Councillor McDunk has responded with no objection. Highways haven't objected, but one of the other comments that Mick has made is that actually by retaining the old part of the wall, you then also retain 2 on-street parking spaces, and it also provides an additional parking space to the existing flats. So it is narrow, and it probably will mean some jiggling around of the cars, but there are the knock-on benefits of an additional parking space and the retention of an old part of the wall. So over to you to discuss.
Thank you, Jane. Any thoughts, comments?
Thanks. We've seen applications for the conversion of the Ring of Bells before, which also involved quite a bit of highways work, didn't it? This is attached to it, isn't it, on the Robbins Lane side? How have we thought, or have they thought, how that will knock on effect with the conversion of the Ring of Bells, if that's ever done, or when it's done? Because that was quite a complicated parking and highways issue as well, to get the cars in and out of there. It does seem to complicate things.
That comes off Broadway, doesn't it? The Ring of Bells, the parking there?
Yeah. It comes around, it's all around the back.
Goes around the back, doesn't it? Yeah.
I'm not sure there's any access from the Ring of Bells development through to Robbins Lane, so I think it will all come off of Broadway to get into the Ring of Bells development.
I agree with the loss of the two parking spaces in obviously an area that's got really tricky parking. It's a nice enough wall in a conservation area. It's so tricky around there. You have to drive at 5 miles an hour, and anyone who tries to do anything more than that, is taking a risk. It's really, if highways have no problem with the safety, I mean, they're the people that we need to refer to or defer to a degree, don't they? Because we're not pulling in and out of there, but we are the ones who are driving up and down there. And it's not great that there are so many cars parked there along that road in general, but it does make people slow down, I guess. And it's free on-street parking that would be removed by that. So if they can do it without removing the wall, seems better. But if it's going to make it really difficult and awkward, then it's not a huge loss either, is it? It's not a huge loss, 2 parking spaces. I think it would be better with, personally.
It's already a tricky pull-out, isn't it? It's just making it a little bit trickier. And as you say, if you're going to retain 2 parking spaces on the road, then that's probably a benefit. And a very nice wall.
I mean, looking at it, at least the development there, the existing flats and so on, they have at least planned for parking. There's parking there, and the existing dwelling, the main house there, that has got 2 parking spaces. I mean, it'd be a lot worse if those parking spaces didn't exist, because then that would clog up most of the road. And it's not 2 parking spaces, is it? It's not being pedantic, but it's the space where 2 cars can park.
Yes, you're right.
No, I mean, they're not taking away 2 designated spaces.
No,
it's simply
yes.
on the road. So I think it's okay. It's not causing too many issues, I don't think.
I'm happy with it. I'm going to propose that we're okay with it. We accept it.
And that's unanimous. Thank you. So those are all the applications that I had on the list, unless there are any others that anybody wishes to raise for discussion. If not, are you happy to vote that the responses are no objection as per the list?
Yeah, although a lot of defer to tree officers, aren't they?
Yes, yeah. So oh yes, and number 268 on the list, there is a comment about the fact that the guttering, sorry, that's 45 Somerset Road, comment that the guttering will overhang the neighbour's property. The neighbour has made comment online, but I'll just reiterate that comment as part of any response.
Yep, I'm happy with that. Everyone else? Yep, okay, so we propose.
And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Right. Is that it? Thank you. Thanks, everybody. So the date of the next meeting has been discussed at length with the 10th of August 2023.